An arrogant billionaire frames an innocent man. The trial's final twist leaves him begging for mercy. In the heart of a bustling city, a towering skyscraper stood as a testament to the wealth and power of Victor Blackwood. The billionaire's empire spanned industries, his influence felt in every corner of society. Yet, beneath the glittering facade, a darkness lurked, a cruelty that knew no bounds. Lucas Everett, a humble mechanic, found himself caught in the crosshairs of Victor's malice. Falsely accused of a crime he did not commit, Lucas's life crumbled around him. As he sat in a cold, damp cell, he wondered how he could ever prove his innocence against a man with endless resources and a heart of stone. But fate had other plans. Gabriel Stone, a brilliant lawyer with a deep sense of justice, caught wind of Lucas's plight. Having witnessed the destructive power of men like Victor, Gabriel knew he could not stand idly by. He vowed to take on the case, to fight for the truth and bring a glimmer of hope to a man who had lost everything. Victor Blackwood sat in his opulent office, a smirk playing on his lips as he gazed out at the city below. He relished the fear he instilled in others, the power he wielded with a mere snap of his fingers. When news of Lucas Everett's arrest reached him, Victor barely registered the name. To him, the mechanic was nothing more than a pawn, a means to an end in his twisted game of control. But Victor had underestimated the strength of the human spirit. As word of Lucas's story spread, the community began to rally behind him. Whispers of support turned into acts of defiance, small gestures that chipped away at the foundation of Victor's empire. Gabriel Stone knew the road ahead would be treacherous. Taking on a man as powerful as Victor Blackwood was no small feat, but he also knew that every journey began with a single step. With determination in his heart and a fire in his eyes, Gabriel set out to unravel the web of lies that had ensnared an innocent man. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the trial began. Lucas Everett sat at the defendant's table, his hands clasped tightly in his lap, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. Gabriel Stone stood beside him, a pillar of strength in a sea of uncertainty. As the prosecutor laid out the case against Lucas, Victor Blackwood watched from the gallery, a smug expression on his face. He had no doubt that his wealth and influence would ensure a guilty verdict, that Lucas would be just another casualty in his quest for power. But Gabriel had a few surprises up his sleeve. With each witness he called, the cracks in the prosecution's case began to show. Slowly but surely, the truth began to emerge, painting a picture of a man wrongfully accused and a system corrupted by greed. In the face of mounting evidence, Victor's confidence began to waver. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that he was not invincible, that his actions had consequences that even he could not escape. As the trial progressed, the community's support for Lucas grew stronger. People from all walks of life came forward to offer their help, whether it was providing alibis or digging up evidence that had been buried by Victor's influence. Gabriel Stone worked tirelessly, poring over every scrap of information, every lead that could prove Lucas's innocence. He knew that the odds were stacked against them, that Victor's reach extended far beyond the courtroom walls. But Gabriel also knew that he was not alone in this fight. With each passing day, more and more people stood up to Victor's tyranny, their voices joining together in a chorus of defiance. It was a testament to the power of unity, to the strength that could be found in numbers. As the final witness took the stand, Gabriel felt a flicker of hope. The tide was turning, the truth was coming to light. And though the battle was far from over, he knew that they had a chance, that justice was within reach. Victor Blackwood paced his office, his brow furrowed in frustration. The trial was not going as planned, and he could feel his grip on power beginning to slip. He had always believed himself untouchable, a man above the law. But now, faced with the possibility of defeat, he realized just how fragile his empire truly was. In a desperate attempt to regain control, Victor lashed out. He used every trick in his arsenal, every dirty tactic he could think of to discredit Lucas and undermine Gabriel's case. He bribed witnesses, threatened jurors, and even resorted to violence when all else failed. But Gabriel Stone was not so easily deterred. He had faced men like Victor before, had seen the depths to which they would sink to protect their own interests. And he was determined to see this fight through to the end, no matter the cost. As the trial reached its climax, the courtroom crackled with tension. The fate of an innocent man hung in the balance, and the eyes of the city were fixed on the proceedings, waiting with bated breath for the verdict that would change everything. In the midst of the chaos, small acts of kindness began to emerge. A local cafe owner offered free meals to Lucas's family, knowing the financial strain the trial had put on them. A group of mechanics, inspired by Lucas's story, pooled their resources to help cover his legal fees. These moments of compassion, though seemingly insignificant in the grand scheme of things, had a profound impact on Lucas. They reminded him that he was not alone, that there were still good people in the world who believed in justice and fairness. Gabriel Stone witnessed these acts of kindness with a sense of pride. He knew that true change came not from grand gestures, but from the small, everyday choices that people made. It was in these moments that he saw the potential for a better future, a world where the likes of Victor Blackwood held no sway. As the trial reached its final days, Gabriel prepared for the battle of his life. He knew that Victor would stop at nothing to secure a guilty verdict, that the billionaire's influence ran deep. But he also knew that the truth was on their side, that the evidence he had gathered was irrefutable. With a steely resolve, Gabriel stepped into the courtroom, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He had faith in the system, in the power of the law to right even the most grievous of wrongs. And he had faith in the people, in their ability to stand up to injustice and fight for what was right. As the closing arguments began, the atmosphere in the courtroom was electric. Gabriel Stone stood before the jury, his voice steady and commanding as he laid out the evidence that proved Lucas's innocence beyond a shadow of a doubt. He spoke of the corruption that had allowed Victor Blackwood to operate with impunity for so long, of the lives that had been ruined by the billionaire's greed and cruelty. He painted a picture of a man who believed himself above the law, who thought nothing of destroying the lives of others to further his own ends. But Gabriel also spoke of hope, of the power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of times. He reminded the jury that they had the chance to send a message, to show that no one, no matter how wealthy or powerful, was above justice. As he finished his argument, Gabriel could see the effect his words had on the jury. They sat up straighter in their seats, their eyes fixed on him with a newfound intensity. And in that moment, he knew that they had a chance, that the tide had turned in their favor. Victor Blackwood, on the other hand, could feel his world crumbling around him. He had always believed that his money could buy him anything, that his influence was unassailable. But now, faced with the prospect of defeat, he realized just how hollow his victories had been. As the jury deliberated, the city held its breath. The trial had captured the attention of the nation, and everyone from the highest echelons of power to the humblest of citizens waited anxiously for the verdict. In the courthouse, Lucas Everett sat with his head bowed, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. He had been through so much, had endured more than any one person should ever have to bear. But through it all, he had held on to his faith, his belief that the truth would prevail in the end. Gabriel Stone paced the hallways, his mind racing with the possibilities of what the verdict might bring. He had done everything in his power to secure Lucas's freedom, had fought tooth and nail against the forces of corruption and greed. But he knew that in the end, the decision lay in the hands of the jury, that their judgment would be final. As the hours ticked by, the tension in the courtroom grew palpable. Whispers turned to murmurs, and murmurs to a deafening silence as the jury finally filed back into the room. The foreman stood, his face an unreadable mask as he held the slip of paper that would decide Lucas's fate. And then, with a voice that seemed to echo through the ages, he spoke the words that would change everything. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Lucas Everett, not guilty on all counts." The courtroom erupted in cheers as the verdict was read. Lucas Everett collapsed into his seat, tears streaming down his face as the weight of the world lifted from his shoulders. Gabriel Stone embraced him, a grin of pure joy spreading across his face. But even as the celebration began, Victor Blackwood sat in stunned silence, his face a mask of disbelief. He had never imagined that he could be defeated, that his power could be so easily stripped away. And now, faced with the prospect of his own downfall, he felt a fear unlike any he had ever known. As the news of the verdict spread, the city came alive with a newfound sense of hope. People took to the streets, their voices raised in songs of victory and defiance. They had seen justice prevail, had witnessed the power of the people to effect change. And in that moment, something shifted. The fear that had once gripped the city began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of unity and purpose. People who had once been divided by fear and mistrust now came together, united in their determination to build a better future. Lucas Everett, once a symbol of the city's brokenness, now became a beacon of hope. His story inspired others to stand up against injustice, to fight for what was right no matter the cost. And as the city began to heal, as the wounds of the past began to mend, it was clear that his legacy would endure long after the trial had faded from memory. In the weeks that followed the trial, the city underwent a transformation. The corruption that had once been so pervasive began to unravel, as more and more people came forward to tell their stories and demand change. Victor Blackwood, once a towering figure of power and influence, now found himself facing the full weight of the law. His assets were seized, his empire crumbling around him as the true extent of his crimes came to light. But even as he faced the consequences of his actions, Victor remained defiant. He refused to accept responsibility, insisted that he had done nothing wrong. And in his stubborn refusal to change, he became a symbol of the very corruption he had once embodied. Gabriel Stone, on the other hand, found himself at the center of a movement for change. His tireless efforts to secure justice for Lucas had inspired others to take up the fight, to stand up against the forces of greed and corruption that had held the city in their grip for so long. And as the movement grew, as more and more people joined the cause, Gabriel knew that they had the power to effect real, lasting change. He had seen firsthand the impact that a single person could have, the ripple effect that one act of courage could set in motion. With a renewed sense of purpose, Gabriel set out to build a better future, to create a world where justice and fairness reigned supreme. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, he knew that with the support of the people, anything was possible. As the city continued to heal, as the scars of the past began to fade, a new sense of community began to emerge. People from all walks of life came together, united in their desire to build a better world. In the heart of the city, a once abandoned lot was transformed into a thriving community garden. Families and neighbors worked side by side, planting seeds of hope and renewal that would grow and flourish in the years to come. Lucas Everett, now a free man, found solace in the garden. He spent his days tending to the plants, nurturing them with the same care and attention that he had once lavished on his beloved machines. And as he watched the garden grow, as he saw the fruits of his labor take root and flourish, he knew that he had found his true calling. Gabriel Stone, too, found a new sense of purpose in the garden. He saw in it a symbol of the city's resilience, of its ability to rise from the ashes of despair and forge a new path forward. And he knew that as long as there were people willing to fight for what was right, as long as there were those who believed in the power of hope and unity, the city would continue to thrive. As the seasons changed, as the years passed, the garden became a beacon of light in the heart of the city. It was a reminder of the power of community, of the strength that could be found in coming together and working towards a common goal. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, though there would be challenges and setbacks along the way, the people of the city knew that they had the power to overcome any obstacle, to build a future that was bright and full of promise. As the city continued to evolve, as new challenges arose and old wounds began to heal, Gabriel Stone found himself at a crossroads. He had dedicated his life to fighting for justice, to standing up for those who had been wronged by the system. But now, faced with the prospect of a new chapter in his life, he found himself questioning his purpose. It was in this moment of uncertainty that he met Olivia, a young woman with a fierce determination and a heart full of compassion. She had grown up in the shadow of Victor Blackwood's empire, had seen firsthand the devastation that his greed and cruelty had wrought. But rather than giving in to despair, Olivia had chosen to fight back. She had started a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering the city's most vulnerable populations, to giving them the tools and resources they needed to build a better life. As Gabriel got to know Olivia, as he saw the passion and dedication that drove her work, he began to see a new path forward. He realized that true change came not just from fighting against injustice, but from building something new and better in its place. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose, Gabriel joined forces with Olivia. Together, they worked to expand the reach of her organization, to bring hope and opportunity to every corner of the city. It was a daunting task, one that would require all of their strength and determination. But as they looked out over the city, as they saw the seeds of change beginning to take root, they knew that they were on the right path. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, though there would be obstacles and challenges at every turn, they knew that together, they could build a future that was bright and full of promise. As the years passed, as the city continued to grow and change, Lucas Everett found himself at the center of a new chapter in its history. He had never sought out the spotlight, had never wanted to be a hero. But his story had touched the hearts of so many, had inspired a new generation to take up the fight for justice. And so, with a heavy heart but a sense of duty, Lucas stepped into the role that had been thrust upon him. He became a voice for the voiceless, a champion for those who had been forgotten by the system. He worked tirelessly to build bridges between communities, to bring people together in the spirit of unity and common purpose. And as he watched the city begin to heal, as he saw the seeds of hope and renewal begin to take root, he knew that his journey had been worth it. Gabriel and Olivia, too, found themselves at the forefront of the city's transformation. Their organization had grown and flourished, had become a beacon of light in the darkness. And as they looked out over the city, as they saw the impact that their work had had on the lives of so many, they knew that they had found their true calling. They had dedicated their lives to building a better world, to creating a future that was full of hope and possibility. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, though there would be setbacks and challenges at every turn, they knew that they had the strength and determination to see it through. For they had seen the power of hope, had witnessed the transformative impact that a single act of courage could have on the world. And they knew that as long as there were those who believed in the power of unity and compassion, as long as there were those who were willing to fight for what was right, the city would continue to thrive. And so, as the years turned to decades, as the city continued to evolve and grow, the legacy of Lucas Everett and Gabriel Stone lived on. Their stories became the stuff of legend, tales of courage and resilience that were passed down from generation to generation. The community garden that had once been a symbol of hope and renewal became a permanent fixture in the heart of the city. It was a place where people from all walks of life could come together, could share in the bounty of the earth and the joy of each other's company. And as the city continued to face new challenges, as new obstacles arose and old wounds began to heal, the people drew strength from the lessons of the past. They remembered the power of unity and compassion, the transformative impact that a single act of kindness could have on the world. Lucas Everett, now an old man, spent his days in the garden, tending to the plants and sharing his wisdom with the younger generations. He had lived a life full of purpose and meaning, had seen the city he loved rise from the ashes of despair and become a beacon of hope for the world. Gabriel and Olivia, too, had left their mark on the city. Their organization had grown and flourished, had become a model for others around the world. And though they had long since passed the torch to a new generation of leaders, their legacy lived on in the countless lives they had touched, in the seeds of change they had planted that would continue to grow and thrive for generations to come. And so, as the sun set on the city, as the shadows lengthened and the day drew to a close, the people looked to the future with hope and optimism. They had seen the power of the human spirit, had witnessed the incredible resilience and strength that lay within each and every one of them. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, though there would be challenges and setbacks along the way, they knew that as long as they stood together, as long as they held fast to the values of unity and compassion, there was nothing they could not overcome. For they were the people of the city, the inheritors of a legacy of courage and hope that would endure long after they were gone. And in their hearts, they knew that as long as there were those who believed in the power of love and kindness, as long as there were those who were willing to fight for what was right, the city would continue to thrive, to be a light in the darkness and a beacon of hope for all who saw it.